Nioh 2 is an action RPG that comes from Team Ninja and brings back the punishing but highly engaging combat of the original and manages to successfully improve upon nearly every aspect that made it so good. Despite its name, it's not a sequel and actually takes place before the events of the first game and sees you being able to create your own character from scratch as you fight to uncover the mystery behind several spirit stones which have the ability to grant their user supernatural powers. It's nothing worth writing home about, to be fair, but it does provide the context and perfect backdrop to what the game gets right, and that is the serious amount of challenge that it cooks up. For those of you familiar with the Souls games, you'll know exactly what to expect, with the game boiling down to a range of increasingly difficult battles and duels that'll test your patience to the absolute limit. When it comes to the actual fighting, not only are your attacks and skills limited by a stamina meter, but any extra attack or mistimed movement will leave you exposed, often to an attack that will cost you a huge amount of health. Luckily, you've got plenty of options when it comes to fighting back, with just over 9 different weapon types that all offer a nice balance between speed, range and power, and with 3 different stances during combat, there's plenty of nuance to each of them. Along the way, you'll be leveling up and progressing through a skill tree to unlock new abilities that give you a fighting chance of surviving the often harsh and unforgiving nature of the enemies and bosses you'll face, allowing you to experiment with different approaches depending on your playstyle. Ultimately, Nioh 2 is a great improvement over the original, and even though it's bound to send you into fits of rage, it's still a game worth playing for the challenge alone. Shadows of the Damned is a third-person shooter that comes from Suda51, the same man responsible for some of the wackiest games like Killer 7 and Deadly Premonition, and introduces players to Garcia, a Mexican demon hunter who's got to travel to the city of the damned in order to save his girlfriend. Along for the ride is your sidekick Johnson, a former demon that can turn into a variety of different weapons and has a passion for telling as many dick jokes as it can. When it comes to the gameplay, it's your standard over-the-shoulder approach, with the game being broken up into a series of chapters where you've got to explore each environment, blast your way through waves of demons, and finally unlock the door leading out. What helps mix it up though is how it plays around with the concept of darkness, and more often than not you'll enter an area that's completely devoid of light, where the dark will slowly drain your health until you leave or get rid of it. There's several ways you can do so, with the easiest being to locate a goat head that's present within each level and shoot it with a special light bullet, or you can just simply defeat the enemies that are spewing it into the environment themselves. One key aspect of the game though are the several collectibles you can find scattered throughout each location, with diamonds being the most valuable as they serve as a means to purchase items, as well as upgrades for your weapons, health and light shot, making it a good idea to explore as much as you can in between each gunfight. Overall, this remastered version breathes new life into Suda's cult classic while preserving its unique style and ironing out some of the issues that came with the original, making it the best way to experience this overlooked gem. After the major success of the Doom reboot in 2016, it was only a matter of time until we'd see a sequel that would build upon everything that the original introduced, and it all picks up a few years after the events of the first game, with you again jumping into the shoes of the Doomslayer, who's on a mission to end Hell's consumption of the Earth and to stop the plan to exterminate humanity as a whole. On the gameplay front, it continues the first game's relentless approach to combat and encourages you to be aggressive, as each of the enemies will often drop health, ammo and armor, allowing you to keep up the offensive without too much of a risk. But just as important as the gunplay is movement, as it's also a major factor in staying alive. You've got a handy dash that's perfect for weaving in and out of incoming fire, a grappling hook that's a surefire way to get yourself out of a tight spot, and also the ability to climb walls. And when you add this to the sheer variety of weapons you get to use, the stage is set for all kinds of chaos. From the super shotgun to the rocket launcher and plasma rifle, there's plenty of ways to approach each firefight, but just like every other game in the series, the gore is the driving force of the game, with the glory kills providing some of the most grotesque kill animations you'll ever see. This mechanic alone more than justifies the mature rating, but for anyone who may be a bit squeamish, just be prepared to have your stomach turn. Even though the rebooted Doom series won't be for everyone who enjoyed the originals, Doom Eternal offers up one of the best first-person shooters in recent memory, and compared to its predecessor, it's bigger, faster, and above all else, a lot more fun to play. So if you can grab it for cheap, it's definitely something you should add to your collection as well. Tales through Daybreak mark the beginning of a new saga for the Legend of Heroes series, and brings with it a more mature and dense narrative without losing all of the charm that made the series one of the most beloved among hardcore fans of JRPGs. Daybreak II still has a relatively slow pace as expected from games in the franchise, but the story beats a better balance, with the narrative always remaining engaging throughout the journey. Now the game is all split up into a series of days that see you having to fulfill certain tasks, while having the option to get stuck into a vast amount of optional content that really helps flesh out the world that the game takes place in. This is mainly done through an infectious cast of characters that are full of personality, and thanks to the game's script that knows when to be serious but also when to have fun, you'll find yourself being pulled into the events that transpire. Develop a real relationship with all of the characters as you work towards the end. In terms of actual gameplay, Daybreak II is a huge improvement over the games that came before it, and this is mainly due to the battle system that allows you to choose from either real-time combat or to stick to the tried and tested turn-based formula, with each and every character having a huge amount of skills and abilities to learn and use throughout the adventure. By far one of the most impressive aspects of the game though are the visuals that deploy a cel-shaded aesthetic and bring life to the world around you, from the busy and detailed towns to the open and rich countryside to each and every effect that accompanies your moves in battle. It's extremely easy on the eyes. Daybreak 2 provides the perfect jumping on point for the long running series, and with many of the changes and improvements it'll no doubt satisfy veteran fans as well. Upon its release, Dying Light 2 was a bit of a mixed bag, and it didn't fulfill all of the promises that were made during its development, but that doesn't mean that it's not a good game. It mainly stuck to the blueprints of its predecessor, and takes place in a huge city full of survivors after a zombie outbreak, where you've got to explore, scavenge and fight to survive. Like nearly every character in the game, you yourself are infected, and the only way to stop it from spreading is to constantly stay in contact with UV rays or take pills before the immunity meter fills up. This ever-present need to stay on top of this gauge that will deplete in a matter of minutes should you be inside is a great addition to the gameplay that really piles on the pressure throughout each and every run into the city. The hordes of zombies will pile into the buildings during the day, with bandits roaming the city, but at night they will pour onto the streets, so it's up to you to plan your routes and the best way to approach each mission with this threat in mind. Thankfully, getting around the city is relatively easy thanks to the parkour system that makes a return and sees you being able to leap from building to building, scale skyscrapers and make a quick getaway should it all turn south. As you level up, you'll unlock even more parkour skills like running on walls or sliding through tight spaces, and when you couple this with one of the many different weapons you can get your hands on, running through the city and taking out targets feels incredibly satisfying. Dying Light 2 was an ambitious game, and like I mentioned, it didn't deliver on all of its promises, but the many technical issues that plagued its release have mainly been resolved, making it a far better experience to go back to today. Being a huge fan of the Yakuza series, it was great to see the team taking the formula in a different direction with Judgment, and instead having you play the part of a detective. A couple of years later, we got its sequel, which refined the formula and again saw you assuming the role of Yagami as you investigate a criminal accused of murder that takes you across several cities as you work towards finding out the truth. Just like Yakuza, martial arts play a significant role in the game, with Yagami having 3 different fighting styles that bring their own unique benefits to each fight. You've got Crane style, which is perfect for crowd control and when the odds are stacked against you, as well as Tiger, that's best suited to one-on-one encounters, and finally Snake style, that's best used for countering or disarming your opponent. Having the ability to switch between all of these 3 on the fly adds a huge strategic element to each fight, with each of the styles having their own string of attacks and combos to master. But it's not all just about fighting though, as your detective work will require you to work in the shadows and take advantage of the stealth system as well. From being able to throw coins to distract your targets to sneaking up and taking them out quietly, it's a really great addition. Of course, minigames are also a large part of the equation, and this is where the game gets to have some fun with itself as you take on the part of a dance team coach and compete in rhythm-based activities or challenge the local bike gangs in a series of races. There's a healthy amount of variety, and that's not even mentioning the several classic Sega games that you can play at the arcades. If you enjoyed the original, then Lost Judgment is a no-brainer, as it successfully capitalizes on what made the first game so memorable and improves upon nearly every aspect of it in the process. With From Software's success with Demon's Souls on the PlayStation 3, the company would go on to create a series of games that would define the genre and earn the status that only some developers can dream of. Bloodborne really feels like the culmination of everything that came before it, and to this day for me it's the best game they've produced, and that's not because of the challenging gameplay, but its atmosphere that feels totally unmatched even all of these years later. The dark gothic vibe of Yharnam is the real star of the show, with you taking control of a hunter who's tasked with slaying beasts as you explore the ruined towns, vast forests and menacing castles that make up the world. The gameplay is about perseverance more than anything else, and is set at breakneck pace as enemy charge you down en masse with a varied range of lunges, grabs, bullets and spells, but you're just as vicious as any of the monstrosities patrolling the streets. You get a selection of about 15 different weapons, all of which function as swords and blades in their normal state, but are capable of being transformed into another weapon type with the touch of a button, giving it an entirely new moveset. With both a light and a heavy attack for each of them, the best approach is to wait for an opening and get in a few hits before dodging out of harm's way. But what makes it all the more challenging is just how unpredictable the enemies can be, and you can't just simply hide behind a shield and hope for the best. But this is where the regain mechanic comes into play, and when you take damage it's possible to regain your HP by counter-attacking at the right time, allowing you not to have to solely rely on blood vials to regenerate your health. The combat ends up being the perfect blend of risk versus reward, and makes the constant game overs all the more worth it for each and every success you have. Here's hoping that it one day gets a remake of its own, or a sequel that can carry on its legacy. Way back in 2003, Team Ninja would introduce a spin-off of the Dead or Alive series known as Xtreme Beach Volleyball, which featured all of the female fighters from the franchise competing in a range of different minigames. Fast forward to 2016 and it received its third entry, and as you can see there's no doubt as to why it got a mature rating, with the game letting you choose from one of the several characters included as you set out to an island for a 2-week vacation where the main aim is to ensure their happiness throughout their stay. This is mainly achieved by taking part in the minigames on offer, such as tug of war, pool hopping, butt battle, rock climbing and of course volleyball. You can also buy and send gifts from the island store, which includes swimsuits as well as food and drinks, with each of the characters having their own set of favourite items, and by earning enough money to acquire them, their happiness will slowly increase. Now each day you spend on the island is split up into 3 different time slots, allowing you to plan out your activities, but before the day's end you'll head off to a casino where extra cash can be earned with all of the money you've gained from the beach activities throughout the day. You've got blackjack, roulette and poker that allow you to work towards unlocking some of the more expensive items in the store, which can take a lot of time and luck to acquire. Now the game's not without its faults though, and this mainly comes down to the lack of content and missing characters, which was a bit of a disappointment for many fans at the time of its release. When compared to the previous games in the series, it was a downgrade, but it's still worth it for those of you fond of Dead or Alive. It's just a shame that Team Ninja didn't let us spend more time in the oven. Ever since the remake of Resident Evil 2 and 3, it was inevitable that Capcom would eventually reimagine the 4th entry, and it's arguably the best out of the bunch. Picking up after the events of Code Veronica, you once again step into the shoes of Leon, as you're sent to rescue the president's daughter from a strange religious cult. In true RE fashion, it's not long until you realise you're up against hordes of zombie-like enemies who have been infected by a mind-controlling parasite, and your only option is to stand and fight. This is where RE4 excels, and its combat is easily the biggest draw of the game, with you being able to wield an insane variety of different weapons, all of which can be upgraded by spending the money you collect throughout the environment. The iconic merchant proves to be just as useful as he was in the original, and it gives you a real incentive to scour each location in the hopes of finding treasure which can be combined and sold for high prices. This loop just never gets old, and working towards unlocking some of the better weapons or modifying the ones you already have provides a great sense of progression, and you'll definitely be needing them, as the game goes forward the amount of enemies on screen as well as different types and bosses just seem relentless. Of course the visuals are a stark improvement over the original as well, and take full advantage of the RE engine, delivering fantastic results on the PS4. If you're using a Pro, you can expect up to 60 FPS during play, with it dropping a bit when the action heats up, and even the base model manages to hold its own and offers a pretty respectable experience as well. When it comes down to it, Resident Evil 4 Remake is by far one of the best mature rated games you're gonna find on the PS4, so whether you're new to the franchise or looking to see how well Capcom reimagined the original, it's definitely worth picking up. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a prequel that ties in directly to the events of the first game that released in 2010, and this time around you play as Arthur Morgan, the right-hand man of Dutch and a family of outlaws and thieves. Whereas John in the original was a bit more neutral, Arthur is a much more brutal character who's not afraid to get on the wrong side of the law, and after one of their planned heists goes wrong, the gang is struggling to survive, and this is where the game kicks off. Here you're free to take on a series of different missions that offer a great amount of variety and push the story forward, but what helps make the world feel alive are the random encounters you'll come across whilst making your way from A to B. It's so often that you'll find yourself getting distracted and heading off the beaten path in order to help those in need, leading to it taking quite a long time before you'll feel that you've seen everything that the game has to offer. Now the gunplay is where RDR2 is at its best, and it feels a lot more natural when compared to the original, with a generous selection of weapons to unlock as you progress, but enemies aren't the only threat in the game, as your own health and stamina are just as much of a problem, with every action you take slowly chipping away at them. By stocking up on tonics and food, as well as taking a well-earned rest from time to time back at camp, you'll be able to survive the harsh environment, with it ending up feeling like more of a simulator than just a standard open world game. With its extreme attention to detail, fantastic world to explore, and characters to meet along the way, Red Dead Redemption 2 is one you owe it to yourself to play. Well, that does it for another video. Keep an eye out for the next part, as that will be coming up soon, so don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell to get notified about new videos. You can follow me on all of the socials, which are linked below, to stay up to date, and also join my growing community on Discord to meet many like-minded gamers to continue the conversation with. I'd like to give a special shout out to my Patreon supporters: Rhino, Skill Jim, Shuden, Richard, Amy, Daniel, Dio, Omar, Strider, Pierre, Carl, Awesome Jacket Dude, Maximus, Scott, Alfred, Terry, Ryan, Alex, GameCube Galaxy, Curse Salaryman, Fake and Paddy J for their continued support that helps make these videos possible. If you're interested in joining the Discord or supporting the channel through Patreon, you'll find all of these links down below. As always, thanks for taking the time to check the video out. I'll catch you next time.